Present.
Welcome to Newsline, live from the RMIT studios. Hello and welcome back to Newsline. I'm Nia Barnes.
And I'm Killy Forbes.
This afternoon we'll be bringing you the latest news around Australia, including car usage by students, flower farms and Australia's biggest blacksmithing festival. Later in the program we'll have updates on sport and the weather. But first, today's news. Earlier this morning, protesters gathered outside the public housing towers at 33 Alfred Street, North Melbourne, as they successfully warned off construction workers for the second day in a row. The demolition of the towers has faced backlash from residents, the local community as well as the Victorian Greens Party.
We're planning to send demolition crews in high-vis and hazmat suits to start the interior demolition of some of the vacant buildings here at 33 Alfred Street. There are still people living in this building.
So what do we do? Stand up, fight back! So what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Thanks to Archibald McGill for that story.
One person has died following a fierce apartment fire in Melbourne's eastern suburbs of Box Hill on Monday evening. Emergency services were called to Bishop Street after the blaze broke out around 8 p.m. last night in a second-floor apartment. Crews arrived within minutes to find the unit engulfed in fire, with flames visible from the upper levels. One resident was found inside the apartment and pronounced dead at the scene. The victim has not yet been formally identified. All other residents of the building were safely evacuated and the fire was brought under control shortly after. Authorities are investigating the cause of the blaze, but so far it's seen as not suspicious.
A 51-year-old man is in critical condition after being involved in a collision with an e-scooter at the Murray and King Street intersection in Perth. Perth police alleged 24-year-old woman Alice Kemp was riding the scooter with a passenger on Saturday night. Ms Kemp is due to reappear in the Perth Magistrates Court today. While Perth's e-rideable laws are similar to Victoria's, e-scooters are still allowed to travel on footpaths in Perth as long as they do not exceed the 10 km/h limit.
Mount Etna in Sicily erupted on Monday, sending plumes of ash, temperature gases and volcanic rocks several kilometres into the sky. The dramatic eruption triggered panic among tourists, many of whom were seen fleeing the area to safety. Footage captured by visitors showing volcanic matters pouring from the crater, with lava and clouds of ash filling the sky. Despite the intensity of the eruption, the full extent of its impact remains unclear. So far, disruption appears to be minimal. Flights to and from Sicily's airports are operating as normal, and authorities have not reported any injuries or significant damage. Emergency services remain on alert in the region as they continue to assess the situation.
The Australian minimum wage is set to increase by 3.5% from the 1st of July this year, following the Fair Work Commission's annual review. This decision will increase the national minimum wage to $24.95 per hour or $948 per week for a 38-hour full-time week. While the Albanese government called for the independent arbitrator to provide an increase above inflation, currently at 2.4%, the Australian Council of Trade Unions was lobbying for a much higher boost of 4.5%. Last financial year, the minimum wage and awards were increased by 3.75%.
As the ongoing housing crisis in Melbourne is pushing people out of living in inner suburbs, people on Melbourne's fringe are becoming more and more reliant on cars. Vic Bailey has the story.
Living in Melbourne's outer northwest means university student Jessica cannot go anywhere without her car.
Just because it's so annoying having to drive everywhere like 10 minutes minimum.
Jess is part of a growing population that is reliant on cars due to a chronic lack of infrastructure on Melbourne's fringe.
Low-income groups are forced out of living in inner areas because it's not affordable living. And there's not a lot of transit-rich places in these outer areas. It leads to something called forced car ownership.
So taking a train ride would be like an hour and a half when it's a 24-minute drive.
Locals are growing increasingly concerned about traffic congestion, yet Hume's population is expected to grow by 24% in the next 10 years.
There were some quite realistic things you can do to make these suburbs walkable for travel within them. You know, you can start improving access to shopping centres that were in them, give people alternatives for walking and cycling, make the places, you know, more trees, more footpaths, make it possible for people not just have to use the car everywhere.
A swing away from Labor in the recent election might attract more action. Vic Bailey, Newsline.
Now we are joined by our live reporter, Christy Nicolo, who is currently at the Capitol Theatre on Swanston Street. So, Christy, why are you there tonight?
I'm currently in front of the Capitol Theatre because tomorrow is going to be showcasing an exhibition, a part of the Rising Festival. Now, let me tell you, it will be a red sea of lights. Part of this is Japanese artist Shohei Fujimoto, and he will be showing his exhibition called Intangible Form. Now, with this exhibition, he's basically transforming the theatre into a showcase of lights. There's going to be beams coming from here, right, everywhere, and it is going to be incredible.
So, Christy, for those who don't know much about the art scene in Melbourne, what is exactly the Rising Festival?
The Rising Festival is held annually, and it is held within the month of June, and this began in 2022. Now, originally it started it tried to go off in 2020 and 2021, but unfortunately it did not take off due to COVID. Now, with this one, it does have numerous events. It has artists, it has performances, and it does have a bit of food for those foodies out there. And it is known for its unconventional way of being planned. So with that, there are emerging artists and there are also established artists that will be present, which is crazy because that doesn't usually happen.
Now, Shohei has had exhibitions domestically and internationally. What do we know about his involvement?
Well, Fujimoto actually is an artist, and through his art, he aims to explore the way and utilise light to show that inner and outermost truth. Now, he has actually data mapped the theatre inside, so there will be beams coming from everywhere, creating a large sculpture that will be visible. And in terms of that work, he's actually had this work in New York and in Montreal, but this will be crazy because it'll be the first time that it is held in Melbourne, a part of the Rising Festival.
So Melbourne is known to have lots of festivals. What makes this one special?
Well, Melbourne is known as the festival capital. So music festivals such as BTV are held here. There's other things such as the Comedy Festival, which is a part of that culture side of things. And the city tends to host over 8,000 festivals. So for different types, ages, interests, you name it, they probably have it. Now, what's crazy about this is Melbourne actually holds the #1 spot in terms of arts and culture and the #10 spot in terms of globally. And with this, in terms of Rising, what makes it unique is that it has emerging, like I said earlier, emerging artists and established ones. And they aren't just from one spot, they're all over Melbourne. And that creates a really unique environment.
That sounds amazing, but currently students are in their week 12 of university classes, understandably are stressed and probably a bit distracted. Are many of them actually aware of what Melbourne's arts and culture scene has to offer at the moment?
Yes, it is at that time where there's end of semester exams, there's assignments, and imaginably people would be stressed. And with that stress, I could envisage that people wouldn't necessarily be focused on these sorts of announcements, but it is interesting because I did get some diverse perspectives in terms of the students that I spoke to.
It's normally about like food events and stuff like that, but not really about art, not much coverage.
There's the graffiti lane, there's been plenty of art around. Everything's very industrialised, I gotta admit.
I've seen like this graffiti count and all that. Yeah, I've seen a few graffiti, like sculptures and all that.
There's a fair bit of art going around, I gotta admit. I feel like Melbourne is a very artsy community. However, I feel like more can be involved.
Joining us. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Only by coming to this exposition will you see the beauty and scale of this. And Essentially, it is a free event for those that are worried about the money side of things, and it does begin tomorrow, June 4th, and run until June 15th. And this timing will be from 5 to 10:30, so students will be able to relax, have a little rest and breathe after these exams and be able to enjoy the beautiful event.
Thank you so much, Chrissy, for joining us. We'll see you next time. While vibrant bouquets fill window sills across the country, the reality behind where those flowers come from is sparking concern as local growers struggle. Matilda McDermott has the details.
While beautiful blooms don the shelves for Mother's Day, the looming secret behind where they come from has caused struggles among the local flower industry. According to Flower Industry Australia's data, half of the flowers you see for sale are imported from overseas, where they tend to have harder working conditions and lower labour costs.
That it's a shame that that we're able to bring stuff in cheaper than what it costs to grow it here, and that definitely has an impact on a number of crops and a number of people that I know, for sure.
Over the past 20 years, wholesalers have adapted to survive, with importing becoming common among the industry. However, in towns like Mumbolk, flower farming has been in practice for generations.
I think that a lot of those family growers, they keep going for a long time. So people that have farms or flower farms, they're still doing it for a long, long time.
Imported flowers are at a high risk of breaching Australia's biosecurity laws and have to be flown in every day due to their short shelf life. To combat the issues caused by imports, florists around Victoria have opted to use locally grown flowers.
So we get our flowers from about an hour away in a place called Mumbolk, up in the hills, and we get them from farms and from the wholesalers up there, so all local flowers,
Unlike the food industry, which has requirements for the labelling of products regarding their country of origin, it isn't a requirement for cut flowers, leaving many to question whether flowers are homegrown or imported.
We wanted to support the local farmers and the local businesses in that area. We also know where the flowers are coming from.
For now, it's up to the consumer to source out those homegrown flowers. Matilda McDermott, Newsline.
We're going to go to a brief break now, more after. Welcome back. We are now headed to the inner western suburbs where 2 weeks ago a song of metal and fire began as the community gathered for the celebration of a unique art form at Australia's biggest blacksmithing festival. Alexander Scott reports.
Once every 2 years, on a small stretch of the Maribyrnong River, ways of an older world intersect with the modern day. Artists and tradespeople from all over gather to celebrate the marriage of metal and fire in Australia's biggest blacksmithing festival. The event is home to a multitude of interactive activities, art installations and stalls, whereby these experts can display and sell their work to anyone who passes through. From weapons makers
the blacksmith
to sculptors and to crafters of spoons, the range of ways in which the metal is shaped is as unique and diverse as those shaping it. Alice Garrett runs her own blacksmithing lessons with a focus on teaching women the art.
I really want to cater to women because I think predominantly women are instantly quite intimidated into walking into a workshop space, and so if they know it's being run by a woman and has experience in this field, I can give them this space where they don't have to think about who else is there.
The founder and director of the festival, Steve Phillips, spoke on what he thinks is the importance of the event.
Capitalising on a deeper yearning to see and understand old trades.
The festival has been going for over a decade now, and what started as a passion project between a couple of mates has now turned into a show of the arts that the whole community can get involved in. With the support of the Maribyrnong City Council, this riverside revelry now provides a window into a world of technologies that once fought wars, but now gives these unique visual artists a platform for which to share their work. Organisers and visitors seem to come to the same conclusion, that this Free to Go festival is what community is all about.
Just a great community event for free.
Oh, I think they're fabulous. They bring people together, and well, I'm a blacksmith, and so I love that our little trade is kind of can be recognised as something that's not dead.
From Footscray, Alexander Scott for Newsline.
Joining us is Alexander, here to tell us more about the Blacksmiths Festival. Thanks for joining us today, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us from your experience, what is the importance of a niche cultural festival like this?
Well, in essence, I think that all art forms should be celebrated. Obviously, we live in Melbourne, which is a city very rich in culture, and we regularly have festivals and events that celebrate a multitude of different art forms like film, literature and music. But it's really cool to see such a unique and rare discipline celebrated and be put in the spotlight.
So one of the festival's key attractions is a collaborative piece. Could you tell us a bit more about this year's work?
Well, for the past 12 years, at every festival they've had a big collaborative piece, as you say, and this year 15 different artists from both international blacksmiths and local ones worked on a contemplative seat, is what they referred to it as, which is dedicated to the late Mayor of the Maribyrnong City Council, Sarah Carter, who tragically passed away last year. And when I spoke to the founder of the festival, Steve Phillips, he really attested to the dedication that she had for the city, and it really means a lot that this piece of art is going to be implemented.
And what is the historical significance, if any, of Footscray as a location for the hosting of this particular festival?
Well, there's kind of two levels to unpack here. The traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong people, used to regularly gather at the intersection between the Maribyrnong and Yarra rivers for over 40,000 years. And in essence, the festival kind of followed along with that same spirit, acting as a proverbial melting pot of diversity.
So you spoke with Alex Garrett, who runs her own blacksmithing lessons for women. Was her participation in the festival evident on a larger emphasis of diversity for the festival?
Oh, for sure. All the artists and organisers I spoke to constantly referred to the importance of inclusivity in the industry. And historically, it's been very male-dominated, and artists like Alice and all the other incredible women that work in the industry really are pushing the industry forward, both in inclusivity and very much so artistically.
So talk of AI has begun to dominate with a variety of industries with an increase of using of AI within the visual arts. It begs for the question, is there any use for it in techniques like blacksmithing, despite their tactical nature of the art?
Well, as you mentioned, it's quite a tactile art, and it's kind of hard to envisage any way to implement such a technologically advanced software and stuff like that, but there seems to be some ways in which it's being implemented. AI now allows for precise temperature control for metals. So if, for example, if you're a blacksmith and you're not exactly sure how hot the metal is and if it's ready to be manipulated, there's cameras and different detection methods that can tell you if it's ready or not. And additionally, there's machine learning models now that are gaining popularity. They can predict the properties of materials based on their composition, which allows for artists to pick the right materials for their creations, in essence.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Thanks once again for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Speaking of AI, a report on AI and music, the Australian Music Rights Management Organisation, APRA-AMCOS, predicts that by 2028, 23% of music creators' revenues will be at risk due to generative AI. But it's not all doom and gloom for artists, as AI tools also provide creative opportunities. What do the artists think themselves? RMIT journalism student Unfreena Freetree asked RMIT students.
With an increase of AI-created art spread across the internet, Blue Thumb survey shows that 73% of people think that AI poses as a threat to the art world. RMIT University art students are questioning their space in the industry as AI booms.
I do think that it just will reinforce how important creativity is in painting and making things by hand and just sort of the work behind that and the meaning that has.
Bad art is always going to be replaced by other bad art, so it doesn't, like if I'm making good art, which I hope I can be making, hopefully it wouldn't affect me, but I use it in my process to like make drawings and come up with ideas and things like that. So I really just view it as another tool. Certainly it'll put people out of jobs, like, people who are really good at Photoshop.
I feel like you lose a bit of agency over your work if you're using AI. Like if you're not, especially for references, if you're painting, I don't know, it just becomes like a painting of an image. I don't know, you don't have the agency over it. Going out and taking your own pictures or making things from your own experience.
We're heading to a break now. We'll be back soon with the roundup.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Roundup. I'm Zara Salmani.
And I'm Hayley Archer. In the Roundup, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest stories across arts, tech and in the papers. But first, let's take a look at today's headlines across the globe.
Kosovo Press reported that Albanian actor Bekim Femiu would have been 89 today. Who would have been 89 today is remembered in the Balkans for breaking barriers as the first Albanian to achieve international acclaim on both stage and screen. Renowned for his roles in films like The Odyssey and The Feather Collectors, Femiu's legacy endures as a pioneering figure in Balkan and world cinema.
The Bangkok Post is reporting the Thai government's decision to keep the border with Cambodia open, despite reports from the Thai army of Cambodian troops trespassing. The Post is also reporting the Tourism Council of Thailand's request for improvements to address issues deterring tourists. These issues include scams, as well as regulations around cannabis to promote safe consumption.
RNZ News reported today that 20 bus passengers in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, were rescued by police after their vehicle was attacked at a roadblock and the group was robbed by assailants hiding nearby. Authorities have warned travellers to remain vigilant on the highways as incidents like this highlight the ongoing security concerns in the capital.
Peru's Anidia is reporting the opening of the new Jorge Chavez International Airport, which has been praised for its modern design. This modern airport, however, will continue to use a more traditional approach to preventing bird strikes, a team of Harris hawks and a peregrine falcon. Anidia is also reporting Japan has lifted visa requirements for Peruvian passport holders.
Times of India today reported Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed Paraguay's President Santiago Peno Palacios to New Delhi, marking the start of the Paraguayan leader's 3-day state visit to India. The visit focuses on deepening political, economic and cultural ties, with both leaders set to explore new avenues for bilateral cooperation.
Vanuatu's Daily Post is reporting the Vanuatu Citizenship Office is yet to revoke Andrew Tate's passport, stating that his citizenship cannot be revoked until the allegations against him are proven in court. Tate was granted citizenship under an investment program while under investigation in Romania for charges including rape and human trafficking. In other news, the Vanuatu Teachers Union is set to continue their strike, demanding a collective bargaining agreement signed by the government. And that's it for today's front page world news. To tech news now. Telstra has launched a satellite messaging service which will allow customers to send an SMS from anywhere in Australia. We're joined now by our tech reporter Lucy Donnelly. Lucy, this technology is said to be a huge breakthrough for communication outside 4 and 5G coverage zones. How will this change existing communication throughout Australia?
So, Hayley, the Telstra satellite messaging is going to allow anyone with a standard mobile phone to connect to the Telstra network. From that network, they can then connect to the SpaceX Starlink satellite. So, because Australia is such a large country, we have such a large amount of unpopulated landmass. What this means is that only around 25 to 30% of Australia has mobile coverage. So with this new satellite messaging, it means that anyone with a mobile phone can step outside, look up to the sky and be able to send a text message via the satellite. So here's what tech expert Trevor Long has to say about it when he spoke to Channel 9's Today program.
If you go or into the deepest parts of the bush, the outback, there is no mobile tower. Your phone says no signal. But with this deal, your phone will say SpaceX. It will be able to communicate with a satellite, just your normal mobile phone, and you'll be able to send it.
So this technology has been tested by Telstra for months and only got switched on today. Considering it's so new, are there some current fears and limitations surrounding this network?
Well, great question, Zara. So because it is so new, there are certain limitations with this technology. So the first most obvious one is that it's only currently available to people that have the Galaxy S25 phone. So that one of the next steps for Telstra will be to roll out this messaging network on more mobile devices. Another drawback at the moment is that it can only be used to send a text. So this means if you were stranded in the middle of the outback, you wouldn't wouldn't be able to make that emergency phone call to 000, and instead it is confined to text. Another drawback is that because it is a satellite, it can take a bit of time to connect to the network, simply because the satellite needs to be in the correct overhead position. So communications analyst Graham Lynch said that they tried a similar service in the US and it got a bit of patchy reception. So what this means is there were a few messages missed or dropped, but again, it's a step forward for the tech industry.
Cool. Well, for our next tech story, we look to China, who have introduced salt-powered electric scooters to the mass market. The scooters run on a sodium-ion battery and have been lined up outside a shopping mall in the city of Hangzhou for citizens to test. Lucy, most mainstream electric scooters are powered by lead-acid or lithium-ion cells. Why has China made the decision to switch to sodium-ion batteries?
Well, the main reason for this shift is to help China develop their clean technology program. So what this means is that they're looking to shift away from using key raw materials. So because sodium is in essence salt, it's found in the seas and it's also found in the Earth's crust. So what this means is that it's 400 times more abundant than lithium. So this means it's not in short supply for businesses to be working with. It also runs a couple less risks than lithium, as lithium is more prone to fire and explosions.
China has recently been experiencing a high amount of battery fires triggered by the self-combustion of lithium-ion batteries. What safety precautions have been taken on these new batteries?
Well, that's a fair concern, Zara. So safety was at the forefront of this development process. So here's what the Deputy General Manager of the newly opened sodium-lithium hybrid energy storing station had to say about it when he spoke to China state-owned CCTV.
在保障用能安全的前提下，这套钠离子电池储能系统的能量转换效率可以超过92%，高于目前常见的锂离子电池储能系统。我们还会进一步研发更低成本、更高性能的钠离子电池储能系统。
So to expand upon those safety precautions he briefly mentioned, the main plus of sodium ion is it is less prone to exploding in those hotter temperatures, as well compared to lithium ion in colder temperatures. So the energy stored in lithium ion batteries actually drops in sub-zero temperatures, but sodium ion doesn't face that same drawback. So what this means, it's based in the science. The sodium ions actually move more easily throughout the liquid found in batteries. So it just creates a more efficient energy resource for these new scooters.
Thanks, Lucy. Now a look at the arts. Art exhibition Black Injustice is currently being held at the Heidi Museum of Modern Art here in Melbourne. The exhibition looks at Indigenous incarceration in Australia, featuring all First Nation artists. Arts reporter Charlie Kondos is joining us now. Charlie, what can we expect to see at the exhibition?
So the exhibition is titled Black Injustice, Incarceration and Resilience, and it's currently being held at the Heidi Museum of Art, and it's being held until the 20th of July. Now, the curator of the event is Kent Morris, who is a Barkindji artist and creative director. Here's what he had to say about the exhibition.
Black Injustice brings together powerful works by emerging, mid-career and established First Nations artists who have made political comment on the overrepresentation of First Nations Australians in the criminal legal system. These works share the museum walls with the remarkable creative achievements of artists who have lived experience of incarceration.
So all of the artists that are featured in this exhibition are First Nations artists. They are spanning from both emerging and established artists. And there are also participants from the Torch Foundation, which is a program that helps foster either previously incarcerated First Nations Australians or First Nations Australians that are currently incarcerated, allowing them to creatively participate in the discourse.
Since the 1991 Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, incarceration rates for Indigenous Australians have more than doubled. How does this exhibition aim to discuss current incarceration rates for Indigenous Australians?
So currently, Indigenous Australians make up 4% of Australia's population. However, they account for 36% of the national prison members. So the curator of the exhibition, Morris, described the exhibition as both a call to concern and a call to action. It aims to contribute to the current discourse that is surrounding incarceration rates for First Nations Australians. And it was created out of the frustration for the overrepresentation there is right now for Indigenous Australians within the current Australian legal system. And it's really allowing Indigenous artists to have a platform to creatively contribute to the political conversation.
On to our next art story now. The winner of the most esteemed art prize in Australia, the Ramsay Prize, has recently been announced for 2025. Artist Jack Ball has taken away the $100,000 prize for his work titled Heavy Grit. Charlie, what did the winning artwork investigate?
So Heavy Grit investigated the themes of queer intimacy and desire. And it was a series of installation artworks that were revealing glimpses of queer history by layering lots of different photographs, sculptures, and the artist's personal pictures. Now, the collection was developed in response to a collection of scrapbooks that were held by the Australian Queer Archives. And as a trans man, the artist Ball said that they had quite an emotional response to these archival photos, and therefore that inspired their artwork that won the prize. They were the winner out of 22 finalists in total in a unanimous decision by the judges, which the judges described their work as sensual, experimental and sophisticated.
The Ramsay Award is considered the most valuable art prize for young Australian artists. How long has this prize been running for, and what makes it so significant for Aussie artists?
So this prize has been running since 2008, and it was first established by James and Diana Ramsay from the James and Diana Ramsay Foundation. And now this prize only runs every 2 years, and the finalists are selected by a panel of judges where their work is then to be presented in the Art Gallery of South Australia. Now the winning artwork for this exhibition is then acquired by the gallery, and the artist that wins receives $100,000. Now this exhibition, it's designed for artists under 40, so it really aims to help provide a platform for emerging designers in a really pivotal moment of their career to showcase their artworks. Now, what makes this exhibition so incredible is that there are no material boundaries for the artists. So they're allowing artists to use lots of different mediums to convey their stories.
Thank you, Charlie. Now moving on to pop culture. Apple TV has just launched a reimagining documentary of U2 lead singer Bono's critically acclaimed one-man stage show. It's called Bono: Stories of Surrender. Pop culture reporter Grace Boyd joins us with more.
Thanks, Hayley. Yes, U2 lead singer Bono, originally known as David Paul Heaton, hosted a sellout one-man stage show at New York's Beacon Theatre back in 2023. A day of Bono pulling back the curtain on his life, family, friends and faith that have sustained him. Here is a glimpse into the documentary with Bono's words.
Turns out the
documentary is revealing personal stories of his journey as a son, father, activist, and of course, a rock star.
Bono was originally the leader of Irish rock band U2. Grace, can you tell us more about the band and why Bono has gone on to tell his story?
Yes, you may know, and if you didn't know, I would be surprised. Some of their big hits, With or Without You or Beautiful Day, U2 created a legacy. They have had significant impact and influence on rock music, particularly in the 1980s and 90s, and they are still formed as one band. Bono's Story of Surrender tells his story beyond the voice of the well-known hit band in the late 20th century, and parting from the band on a separate journey, he had a health scare which prompted Bono to reflect on his life and how he ended up where he was.
On to our next story. In local news, Australian band The Chats has announced a surprise concert in Melbourne this week. Grace, can you tell us more?
Yes, it's very exciting for Australian music. The Chats are returning to Melbourne this Friday at local venue The Tote in Collingwood. A surprise announcement they made on their Instagram last night that they will be doing a show in Melbourne this weekend on the Friday the 6th of June. Tickets were priced at $20 and were sold out within 4 hours of the announcement. The band will be joined by Leatherman, an upcoming opportunity for a small Melbourne band.
The chats have been around for a while now, Grace. Can you tell us some more about their backstory and rise to fame?
Yeah, if you don't know about the chats, they're originally from the Sunshine Coast. They grew to fame very quickly after a release of their song Smoko in 2017, and then a release in 2019 of Pub Feed took them globally. They are self-described as shed rock with a punk alternative sound, and they've since won an ARIA for the best hard rock heavy metal release in 2022. Here's a performance of them at Splendour of the Grass in 2022. They've since been on an international tour in 2024 and 2025, travelling to Europe and America. The band sings catchy anthems typically about Australian youth culture, and it is an exciting announcement for the Australian music that they're coming back, as we are seeing a local band who grew to fame on a local stage.
Thank you, Grace. All right, now for our final segment, let's take a look at today's political satire. I'm with reporter Madison Cuttajar, here to discuss a few of the cartoons recently featured in national and international news. First up from The Australian, we follow Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Defence Minister Richard Marles, criticised by the US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth for inadequate defence spending. Madison, what's going on with this image?
Thanks, Haley. The first cartoon today is from John Spooner, showing Prime Minister and Defence Minister depicted as frontline soldiers on Australia's shores armed with solar energy measures as weapons. Spooner is criticising the focus on climate change and lack of defence spending. This arose at a conversation at Shangri-La Dialogue with US Defence Secretary suggesting Australia should increase spending to 3.5% of its GDP. Now, Australia currently spends 2% of its GDP expenditure on defence costs, hence why Spooner has titled this cartoon Captain 2%. Now, Australia hasn't seen a 3.5% expenditure since the Cold War, and with Miles in government, he's said that Australia is more at risk to foreign threats now than during the Cold War.
Wow. All right, well, that was our first cartoon looking at Australian defence. Now let's visit the ongoing stories surrounding the government response to the Israel-Gaza conflict. Madison, what does this image show?
Now, this next cartoon is from Fiona Katauskas, published in The Guardian. She is criticising the Australian government's response to the statement for the Israel-Gaza conflict. They addressed the political issues when it benefited their party rather than at a time of distress. Now we can see a woman in a red dress and a man holding a red microphone. We can assume this represents the Australian Labor government. We can see protesters seen outside Parliament House. These government officials are the only ones protesting in support of their timed responses.
Awesome. Well, our next illustration comes over the shores in the US. In the weak US. So Madison, what can you tell us about this next image?
So this illustration in the weak US shows United States President Donald Trump depicted as a clown in light of his on and off again tariff policies. David Wamond depicts Trump as a clown for the taco trade. Now the taco acronym stands for Trump always chickens out. The cartoon shows Trump calling himself a soft charco, insinuating he is weak for his on-again and off-again tariff policies. Now, the cartoon is set in a restaurant, symbolising the taco trade market. Investors invest at the implementation of tariffs and then pull out when the market falls, causing the market to rebound again.
Thanks for joining us, Madison. That was an excellent insight into some political satire from our shores to across the globe. That's all we have on the Roundup today. After the break, we'll get to the latest in sport and weather. I'm Hayley Archer.
And I'm Zara Salmani. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Newsline. I'm Nia Barnes.
And I'm Killy Forbes. Youth crime numbers are surging in Wyndham. Parents and experts are asking why young people in these areas are committing these crimes. However, the real question is will the newly announced machete ban help prevent young criminals from committing more crime? Reporter Abdul Rahman Abdul Qadir has the details.
Youth crime is on the rise in Wyndham City.
Simply in the Wyndham area, crime has gone up.
Many parents are on high alert after nearly 1,000 crimes committed by young people were reported in the last 12 months, according to the Crime Statistics Agency.
Joyriding and on bikes and going around and harassing and bullying others. I don't think it gets to the stage of being physically violent, but surely something is making them behave like this.
Babu Gogineni says that one way to change these crime numbers is by educating young people and their families.
If you're talking of youth, I think it would be correct to say that you should get the youth to counselling, but not just the youth, their parents, their family members.
Earlier this year, the Victorian government announced that they would introduce a ban on selling machetes to the public in hopes to reduce the number of knife-related crimes, which young people account for some of them. Now, the government thinks that this will help reduce these numbers, but some experts have something else to say. Marietta Martinovic, an associate professor in criminology from RMIT University, says the machete ban is not an effective method.
A machete ban is not really a solution. I think that's a band-aid, so it's far away from a solution. A real solution is putting money towards people who are young and who are at risk of engaging in criminal activity.
Martinovic says the government should spend money in educational programs for the young people.
Including them in mentoring programs, for example. That's where the money needs to go. But that's where the investment comes in. Changing a law has nothing to do with providing a solution.
Youth crime is on a steady increase, but parents are hoping these numbers decline from now onwards. Abdurrahman Abdul Qadir, RMIT Newsline.
Now to the world of sport with Liam Cole.
And the Matildas delivered a commanding performance over the Argentinians in Canberra last night. The 4-1 win closed the chapter for interim Matildas coach Tom Sermanni in his final game in charge. Started for the Matildas, kicking 2 goals in the first half as incoming manager So Muntum Uru watched on.
Indescribable feeling, you know, I wasn't playing in a familiar position. It's only my second game back and I was under the tutelage of the amazing Tom Sermanni for the first time. So, you know, it's just a great night, I have to say.
Daria Kazakina has been the last Aussie to be kicked out of the Roland Garros, losing to Russian Mira Andreeva in straight sets. In the men's, Novak Djokovic booked his spot in the quarterfinals to take on Alexander Zverev after defeating UK's Cameron Norrie in straight sets. And Yannick Sinner will take on Alexander Blubic after defeating Andrei Rublev. Aussie cricket star Glenn Maxwell has announced his retirement from one-day international cricket following the recent ICC Champions Trophy this year. The Big Show believed the time was right.
About that if I don't have the perfect conditions in 50 over cricket, my body just probably struggles to get through that, and it feels like it's a tiring affair just to get through on the basics of just of almost surviving the 50 overs, let alone I suppose being at my best throughout that 50 overs.
The 36-year-old played 149 ODI matches, hitting just under 4,000 runs, including 400s and 23 half-centuries. Moving on to footy, and GWS veteran Callum Ward has likely played his last AFL game, with scans confirming an ACL tear. This is the second anterior cruciate ligament tear for the 35-year-old, as the Giants try to climb their way up on the ladder from 7th place.
With each other, we trust each other, and you just play your role. It's simple. No one needs to go there and do anything extraordinary. Play your role and this will swing, I'm telling you. Come on, it's not far. Let's go. Come on, boys. Let's go.
They play Port Adelaide in Canberra on Saturday night. That's all for sport. Any tips, Keely and Naya, for the game between Port Adelaide and the Giants?
Well, if we base it off the latter, the Giants should take the win. Now to a short break. On the other side is the weather. Welcome back to weather now, where Ruby Silverback has the forecast ahead. What are we expecting, Ruby?
Thanks, guys. As winter settles in, it's been a blustery day in Melbourne, with a top of 14 and a low of 10. There have been showers throughout the day and possible hail tonight, mainly around the eastern suburbs. Let's take a look at our Wednesday forecast around the country. Brisbane will be mostly sunny, with 23 with a slight chance of afternoon showers. A top of 16 tomorrow in Sydney, overcast skies and a high chance of rain along the coast. Down to Canberra, it will start off cloudy, a slight chance of showers in the early morning, but from about midday the sky will clear for a sunny afternoon and a top of 12. Down in Hobart, partly cloudy, a 30% chance of showers, hitting just 12 degrees. A sunny day tomorrow in Adelaide with a bit of morning frost in the northern suburbs and a top of 16. Thunderstorms are expected in Perth and a top of 20, heavy rains up to 40 millimetres are expected. While in Darwin, a maximum of 32 degrees and sunny. Back in Melbourne, winter is well underway, so rug up and stay warm. Looking ahead at our 7-day forecast, cool temperatures will continue throughout the remainder of the week. Tomorrow will be overcast, a low of 8 and 50% chance of rain. To Thursday, 15 and partly cloudy with a slight chance of morning showers. A low of 6 and light northerly winds up to 20 kilometres per hour during the evening. Friday will reach 14, it'll be cloudy and a high chance of rain in the afternoon and evening. Winds up to 4 kilometres per hour and a high chance of rain. Overcast and very high chance of rain on Saturday, hitting 15 degrees. Up to 10 millimetres of rain is expected for Sunday, reaching just 12 degrees. Monday will hit a minimum of 6 degrees and a maximum of 14. Back to Naya and Keely in the studio.
Thank you, Ruby.
It's going to be chilly. I wonder when we're going to get some snow.
Do you think you'll hit the slopes this season, Naya?
Maybe not slopes, but I would like to go and see some snow. Might build a snowman.
Are you a ski or a snowbird kind of person?
Snow build. Yeah.
Build, okay.
Build,
I like it.
snow build.
I like it. I like it. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us on Newsline. I'm Keely Forbes.
And I'm Naya Barnes. Thank you and have a good night, Melbourne.